Student loan forgiveness. What is the deal? What's going on? How do you feel about it? And how do we look at this as Catholics?
It's been just over a week since the student loan forgiveness information has been announced by the White House, and there has been no shortage of hot takes, reactions, emotions, TikToks, and in general, lots of opinions getting tossed around the interwebs. We've had a variety of you reaching out to us, naturally, because we talk about personal finances, we talk about student loans and debt, but an interesting angle of question that's been consistent has been, how are we supposed to react as Catholics? Does that have bearing on how we think about, this political decision that's been made? Does it have any influence on if we take action on this, or can we receive this, etc.? And that's the conversation that we wanted to have today.
I got this message the other day. It says, dude, I would love to hear a podcast on how we can be more charitable with the student loan news. I find myself being cynical that some people get bailed out, but also know I can be more charitable during this time. Didn't know if you had more insight on how we can be more charitable as Catholics during this time. LOL. Yes, we do have some insight.
And joining us today on the Catholic Money Show is our WalletWin teammate, Hannah Kreitz. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And she's going to add a different perspective here to the conversation. We've all been kind of doing our own research and kind of having our own feelings in the last week. And then, Jonathan and I coming to the table as people we paid off our student loans in 2012 and now have been teaching others how to do that. And then Hannah is in the middle of her debt payoff journey. So there's a lot of perspectives represented here. And I am excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
You too, John?
Yeah. Me three.
I think that there's a lot of different directions we could go. I feel like the phrase of the year is nuance. There's a lot of nuanced caveats and areas we could speak into. But I do want to preface the conversation with this. We are going to try to stay in the lane of how do we think and respond to this as Catholics? I'm not putting on a political hat. We're not going to be, speaking from one political side or another. We're just going to try to approach this as Catholics, balancing, all of the virtues that we're called to live, justice, mercy, charity, and to think about this issue from that standpoint. So maybe some of you listening want us to tackle it from a purely political standpoint. That's not really our thing around here. And so we're going to not do that. So if you want to have a conversation from the Catholic perspective, that's the direction we're going to go in. If you want to tune into a conversation where we're going to throw political punches, this is the episode that's going to happen in.
No. Yeah, we're going to be looking at it from the Catholic side of things and probably the financial side of things.
Yeah.
This is the Catholic Money Show, so we're going to live up to the title.
Yeah. So let's kind of discuss, as we dive in here, the problem of student loans. I think we have to begin there, and how this became such a issue, such a crippling factor in our economy, and such a generation-defining struggle.
Yeah. I'd say, well, at least for me, the problem went all the way back to my high school guidance counselor.
Oh
yeah.
She was coming around, to the, I don't know what it would have been, the juniors maybe, room by room, and talking about college and all this stuff. And I don't remember anything else from the presentation except, and when you're looking at schools to apply for or apply to, you don't even worry about the tuition costs. That'll get figured out. You can have, student loans. Don't worry about the cost. I think I remember that because I was thinking about the cost. I was worried about. I was thinking about, well, how much is this thing? And I know college is expensive, and some of these seem a lot more expensive than others. Oh, but this person
don't worry about it?
This person in a place of authority is telling me it's not a big deal and just go forward no matter what. Okay.
It was very much the same kind of story from my high school guidance counselor, in that actually there is a statistics on my high school's website that said 99.7% of the students that attended the high school was in the long run accepted into college. And so her job was essentially to get everybody
in
accepted
college.
into
Don't
college.
mess up that stat.
Even if there were kids who, maybe wanted to do a gap year or join the military or whatnot, no,
maybe would have excelled
everybody
in a
had
trade.
to apply. And that was the end goal. And so it was just, if you want to go to college, you're going to get the student loans and you'll be able to pay it off pretty quickly. And if you don't have the money now, and call it good. And then the people who weren't in authority in my life as far as college was concerned, but just wanted what was best for me, figured, you want to go to college and, we'll get the student loans. They just didn't know what that final impact would be. So
I remember years ago, I am going to butcher the name. Adam Ruins Everything?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
That is a thing.
Okay, I think he did a series
did.
on the all too readily available access to student loan debt. We had a huge transformation between, let's call it 1970 and the 2000s. I think college tuition rose, they say, 4.6 times faster than just even basic inflation rate. And that's even accounting for times of rampant inflation back in the 80s. So college tuition was going up exponentially, outpacing everything else, even our ability to earn wages. So that right there, if you want to go ahead and isolate some stats, that was going to spell out a problem eventually, right? And now we're in the midst of that.
well, even the cost of college between, there's about a 10-year age gap between us and
Call me
just
old?
the cost of, yes, Jonathan, I am older than me. No, but even the 10-year age gap between me and you guys, and then the 6.5 age gap between my brother and I, and the difference in cost of college has been out just crazy.
Yeah, it's gone up at this fast pace. And then some legislation began to change in, I believe, the 90s to make college loans more readily accessible, easier to get. You had less things to have to prove in order to get them, just to try to make this goal of, hey, anybody who wants to get a college education can, at any cost. Even if it costs them greatly on the other side, or even if what they're studying isn't going to justify the amount of debt they're taking on.
Yeah, because the idea is, college is great. Everybody should go to college. So let's make it possible for them to go to college. Most people don't have the money. Well, I guess let's lend them some money and make it really easy for those loans to be gotten.
And then because student loans began to be so easily had, and Parent Plus loans, etc. It was just like, if you applied, you're getting them. Colleges began to take advantage of this. Some maybe they weren't thinking of where this was going to end, but we started to see the rise of gorgeous new buildings, of luxury dorms instead of the cinder block thing with a desk and a bunk bed, right?
Communal bathrooms.
Yeah, those days were gone. In with these dorms with kitchens and private bathrooms, which I'm sure when that began to kind of come on the scene, it was like, wow, college is getting fancy.
Ooh, I want to go there. And now the next college sees what the other one's doing. They got to up their game to pay for all these new amenities to compete for professors, all this. The costs just go up and up.
But with this limitless supply of student loans, it fueled it. And then it left a generation, or, now we're seeing that generation hanging, kind of paying for all of that. And now here we are, where student loans have been outpacing every other form of debt. And our society is literally in a stranglehold over these.
And it's crazy because they're so easy to get, right? You're 17, 18 years old, signing on the line for could be tens of thousands of dollars. And what's so interesting or crazy, and I think has really contributed to the rise of so much student debt, is that the loan companies you'd think would have a problem with this. Signing up somebody that young with, who knows if are they going to finish college? Are they actually going to get a job? Are they going to pay me back? Because student loans can't be wiped away in bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there.
They knew eventually they will chase you down and they will get what they get.
Mm-hmm.
Or they were federally owned.
Exactly. Oh yeah, it'll be bailed out by the government. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. So it's all these reasons coming together to make student loans higher, more accessible, and just more people taking more money on.
Yeah, and in this last week, we have seen no shortage of reactions and people with valid concerns and feelings, especially those who maybe did it right or sacrificed or avoided student loans altogether. And I think all of us here wished we would have done that. We would have saved ourselves a world of pain. But I also think that we are naive if we don't acknowledge that for literal decades now, there have been real injustices that have been starting and carried out, and irresponsibilities, if that makes sense, in the form of this ever available debt. And maybe, colleges continuing to ramp up their tuition and room and board rates at a super high inflationary rate. These things have been left unchecked in a way that then is now detrimental to the common good. And I think that it's important for us to, instead of just run to the 17-year-olds and give them want to bash them over the head and rub their nose in the face that they signed on the dotted line, so you owe it. There's that temptation sometimes in us to say, okay, wait, maybe there was other areas where the adults should have had more accountability on themselves to protect the young people who don't have a fully formed brain yet. Right. We don't even let them drink alcohol, but we're literally letting them sign up for 6 figures of loans. Like, wait a minute. Should we as adults have carefully thought more about all of this? And then we'll get more into that in a second here. But I think let's just pause, John, and overview what is being proposed in the student loan quote unquote bailout.
Sure. So in the executive order that the president signed, you'll get, if you have federal student loans, you'll get $10,000 of it forgiven, just kind of wiped off your record. So if you owe less than that, it's all gone. Mm-hmm. If you owe more than that, well, they're just going to take $10,000 and poof, it's gone. Mm-hmm. If you got a Pell Grant, which is just another program in there, you'll be given $20,000 of debt forgiveness. Now there is a income limit for eligibility. They say it's in help to keep it out, so this is helping middle class folks, not the rich. The income limit is $125,000 if you're single, and if you're married, it's $250,000. So it seems high. Certainly, it doesn't. It gets rid of maybe people even higher than that, but maybe that's another point to argue. But it is an interesting thing they did there. And then there's also a piece of this which affects income-based repayment plans. In the past, these would set their payment at 10% of the person's income. Now, those payments will be set at 5% of their income. And if you pay that for 20 years and haven't paid back the loan, the rest of it is wiped away.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So now let's kind of just dive into the conversation of how to think about this as Catholics, and then maybe what are our actions or our attitudes in approaching this. Did you have a thought you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is to see, and I think we just talked about this, but there is a problem with student loans. It's getting out of hand. It's crazy. It is eating up a lot of people's income when they're first starting out. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the least amount of income that they'll be making. And a bunch of it is already spoken for. Mm-hmm. So people are feeling that pinch. It's not a good situation, right? I mean, that's what kind of got us motivated to actually look into our finances and figure things out back in the day. And so there's something going on. People need help, right? The typical experience here is not a pleasant one. Mm-hmm. And we'll acknowledge that. And then, right, people want to figure out something to do about that.
Yes. And, we've talked about this in other podcast episodes of, debt, and particularly student loans, has been a wedge between people's ability, Catholics' ability to say yes to God as generously as they desire in their life. Whether it be they want to enter religious life, whether it be they want to get married, whether they want to add another kid in their family. A lot of times the student loans are getting in the way or causing a lot of turmoil and harm in saying that big fiat to whatever God's asking. And that right there, it makes us angry to the point that we started a business to help people solve this and to get rid of the debt, to get it out of their life so they can give the generous yes, and then not only, live whatever God's calling them to, but to support the kingdom generously. And so when we look at this, we know that there's a problem. There's been a problem. But the big frustration here in just looking at the proposal is that it doesn't actually fix the problem. Mm-hmm. It's a Band-Aid. It doesn't go deep enough to the root issue. And so as a Catholic, we're always looking to solve the real root, not just offer people a counterfeit or offer people something that's not actually going to fix this long term. And so from right out the gate, that is just frustrating. Mm-hmm. Especially the income-based repayment plans, because we've had students that we have worked with where they've come to us and they've said, I've been on the income-based thing. I've been paying my dues.
I've been paying what they told me to pay.
Mm-hmm. And I've been paying for 5 years, and I just assumed I'd made a dent. And then I just poked it open today to look, because you told me to go look at my numbers. And I owe more than I took loans for. That is crap.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give you some hard numbers with my own debt, and I have been making extra payments.
You've been working hard on it.
I've been working hard.
It.
Yeah, and so I started with about $134,000 in student loan debt, mm-hmm. right? So that was in 2018 when I started paying those off, right after I graduated college. Now, so if you were to add up what I've paid off and then what I owe, I did the math the other day, it equivalates about $156,000. So that's what interest has done to my student loans. And now, luckily, I've gotten almost, I think 65% of that paid off in total. But it just goes to show how quickly those interest rates make those final costs jump.
Can you imagine if you had been only doing the bare minimum income-based repayment? What would the total be?
I don't know.
It'd be crazy.
And part of this proposal is that after 20 years of the income-based repayment plan, then it's just wiped, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But my gosh, that's a mortgage,
right?
Being carried on your finances.
Well, let's see. If you graduate college at 21 years old, 22 years old, you're going to be well into your 40s by the time that's paid off. And, that doesn't make sense to be paying off for an experience that you had 20 years ago when, statistically speaking, you would have been married with a handful of kids by that point. The logic is not there.
Yeah.
It hampers so much. And that's why we work with people to actually solve the problem of getting in there and getting these things paid off as quickly as you reasonably can. And that requires paying way more than the income-based plan, and actually just get rid of this issue.
Now, I've seen and heard people talking about, well, this isn't enough. This doesn't help, this doesn't help the situation. This is any good. Exactly. And they go, well, it should just be more. right? $10,000. Ha! I laugh at your $10,000. Give me $100,000. You know, like total debt cancellation. Even that though it's just a bigger, stickier Band-Aid. Because you do that now, what happens in May? You have another graduating class.
You're going to
with probably more debt than ever before. The year after that, it happens again. The year after that happens again. So what's the point? You know, in another 15 years, you're going to have just as many people, just as probably more upset because the costs keep going up. And you're just, we just wipe the slate again?
Yeah.
And now we're just effectively paying for everyone to go to whatever college they want at whatever cost. It's all, and not that I'm certainly not, I don't think I'm advocating for, you know, like the government paying for people to go to college. But if they did that, they'd probably be able to say, hey, colleges, we're going to pay X amount a year to you per student. But now, if they enter into this cycle of doing it all the time, well, now it's, hey, colleges, tell us how much you want us to pay you, and we'll just pay you every year. Like it's the worst of every system mushed together.
Well, there's also no guarantee that those students are going to use the majors that they're graduating college with. Hey, Jonathan, what did you study again?
Elementary education.
Amanda, what did you study again?
Nursing. And here we are.
We're homeschooling and I get hurt a lot. So I think it's working out.
We're just not getting paid. We're paying to homeschool. Continuing to use that degree. Yeah, but it's so there's the acknowledgement here that while it certainly can be a relief to some, it doesn't quite fix the issue. And if there's going to be something to bring about justice and root for the common good, we have to look at all sides of the equation here and kind of, I wouldn't say like mandates and, you know, but I do think that there needs to be accountability, and every single person involved in this equation has to look at the real common good for now for people and down the road, and ask those hard questions of what does need to change, because this isn't sustainable. We all know that. And so that is part of the question. And I think as a Catholic, that's something we need to steer people towards, actual real solutions, real sustainable things that could work for colleges. They deserve to be paid when they're going to educate people. Students that maybe can't get an education otherwise without the help of student loans, how can they do it in a way that doesn't cause them harm? And etc. Just looking at everybody involved and really thinking about the common good and the common good of society.
Yeah. And
making sure that this is set up to serve that.
No, I don't think. I hope you're not expecting us to come out of this podcast episode with the plan that's going to fix all this. We certainly aren't going to be able to come up with that. What we're talking about is just to look at this maybe with a little bit more of a, and not in a negative way, but critical eye, just like questioning, poking, prying back some of the pieces to have a fuller understanding of what's going on. And then hopefully with that, in time, if we are doing that well, maybe we can figure out some ways that will really bring some relief and try to start fixing the situation in the system that we're in.
Right. And something that I want to praise for a minute here is a new initiative in Steubenville, Ohio. Is it called the College of St. Joseph the Worker?
I think so.
So we'll link to that in the show notes, but I want to praise those who are involved with it, as it's a very real way to try to offer, it's a trade school, but they're trying to avoid student loans for those going through, adding value to the community they're in and the businesses that they're serving. And then they're trying to serve the common good by then launching these, new tradesmen and teaching them how to run a business kind of in their areas wherever they end up. It's so clever and creative, and it's completely outside of the box. Yeah. And I think Catholics leading the ways in efforts like that is something that's going to help solve this.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Catholics were initially those who started universities. We led the charge. And then as time goes on, other things get involved and voices get in there. But Catholics, we are pioneers. We're always leading the way in thinking of the common good and leading society and influencing our cultures. And so I think that we'll have to do the same here.
And that's wonderful, because then they get that Catholic community that people go to schools like Franciscan, Benedictine, whatever private Catholic school that's out there. They're getting that community surrounded by Catholic people that a lot of students go to those schools for, including myself. I wanted to be surrounded by Catholic friends, having gone to public school, and really struggling with that public school experience with my faith. And then they can go out and evangelize through their trade and make it, dare I say, an even bigger impact on the world with that.
So I think I want to acknowledge some other feelings here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea of, the Catholic idea of both and. What does that mean, John?
This is saying that we understand there are good things going on, that there's maybe some bad things going on. Like we live in a world where things are, even some of the best things are broken a little bit, or that we don't always have to say this or that. Mm-hmm. Things can be both ways. Yes, both and.
So to go at this situation from an either or standpoint, it's just not enough.
Yeah, I mean, we should acknowledge both situations that, hey, people are, hurting from student loans. This is an attempt to provide some relief, and for some folks, it's really going to help provide some relief, and that's for them. It's a very great program. That's great. For other folks, it's a drop in the bucket, and it's not really going to do too much. There's going to be some good that it does. There's going to be some bad that it does. And to say that it's entirely and completely, amazing or terrible and ruinous is to miss the point.
Mm-hmm. It'd be solely based on the individual who's receiving the forgiveness.
Right.
And what they do with it.
Yes. And I do want to acknowledge, though, that I think, when I initially heard about this come up, the temptation, and I'm what, when we talk about God, sometimes the temptation is to focus on either he's just or he's merciful, and to want to juxtapose those on two opposites. Did I use the right word there?
Sure. Or just to think, he's one of those.
He's one of them.
Or in this situation, he's just. In that situation, he's going to be merciful.
But he's always just and he's merciful. But I thought my temptation, fallen, broken Amanda, is always justice. And justice that's not actually justice, right? I want fairness. We know this side of heaven, we're never going to get fair. It's just not going to happen. We live in a broken, fallen world. But Jesus came, died and rose again, and opened the doors of heaven. So we don't have to, this isn't our end. But this side is always going to be kind of a mess. No, we cannot legislate kumbaya or Shangri-La or whatever.
No utopia.
Or ooh la la.
It is not going to happen. And any laws, they inevitably have holes that can be poked or maybe failures in them, no matter how we're trying to model or echo them or bring about justice or extend mercy. They always fall short of true justice or true mercy. So Amanda, in her justice, I was trying to position myself, let's say we just wrote our last check.
Ooh.
We had about, I think I had about $10,000 of student loans. So it's that very first year of marriage.
Federals, yeah.
Yeah, and we could have had 10,000 of them wiped out. There's a part of me that's bitter and upset and angry and frustrated and gimme mine. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of truth in there, but it reminded me of that parable that Jesus talks about where the vineyard worker goes out to get employees for the day. And some that are early birds, they were there and they got hired out the gate, 6 or 7 in the morning in the fields. And then the worker goes back because there was still work to be done. He goes at noon, he goes at 5, he goes right at the end of the day and hires some people for that last hour. But at the end of the day, he pays them all the same. And that the worker who'd been there all day is pissed off. What? But then, the parable goes, we agreed on this wage and you worked happily for it. What is it to you that I'm just really merciful and I gave the one who only worked an hour the same as you? And that that challenges us. And really the parable is about our faith, right? I could be a disciple of Jesus my whole life. I suffered, I struggled along, I persevered, I ran the race. I turned away from sin at great cost to myself, built virtue with God's grace, and by the end I now am able to enter into the heavenly kingdom. And somebody else might come in and 30 seconds before they die, they repent of everything they've done in their life, even though they were an atheist and they lived a life completely against God, but they too are welcomed into the banquet. Am I bitter about that? If I am, there's something in me that's broke. And that's not a reflection of God and his true exercise of justice and mercy and his lavishness. Now, can the government... This is not the same.
No.
It's not the same at all. But I think...
But there's a helpful lesson there.
There is.
There's certain... It's the same in that it's this experience, at least some of it, right? There's this experience that I'm seeing someone else receive a gift and I'm not. And what
so
the
I wish
heck?
they didn't even get it.
Yeah, well, this is great.
envy?
That's, yeah.
It's envy.
So there's some of that going on. Now, even with that going on, or even if you weren't feeling that, you can still think this is a bad idea. You can look at the economics of it, and
Yes.
you can come to a conclusion that, I don't know if this is going to be the best. I don't know if it's going to be the best for the college, economic system that we've got going on there. I don't know if it might not be the best for some of the people receiving this.
Right. They're
This this forgiveness, and it might not be good. It might even bleed out into other parts of the economy and not be good there. Now, we don't know all those answers.
It could cause inflation.
Yeah, we don't know, right? It just happened. No, nothing's been forgiven yet. And with everything so interconnected and all that, we might get a guess on the effects. Probably won't be able to know for sure, but we don't know exactly how this will play out. So it's I think I haven't, I'm not any sort of Nobel winning economist or anything, but I think it would, at least in my perspective, I think, there's certainly ways where people can be looking at this, especially right now, and see it going a lot of different ways.
Yeah. So I think as a Catholic, the response could be, don't take the bait as far as when envy pops up in your heart, don't follow it. It's natural and it's understandable that might be there. Don't take the bait. It's gonna consume you, and it just doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
But instead, focus on things that do fix the real problem, and encourage people that might in your life. Maybe there's people in your life you're not going to be able to take advantage of this, but they might. Encourage them to have this be a moment where they turn something around, where they really make the most of it. Or maybe you yourself could take advantage of this. And there's nothing that is immoral with you doing that, even if you disagree with maybe the politics or possibly the economic fallout of it. There would be nothing standing in the way of you receiving this benefit.
Yes. Yeah. So I'd say certainly if you qualify, do it. We'll put a link in the show notes, but you can go on the I think is it the IRS, the government's website, and kind of get the information of when you can apply for this and get it put onto your account and all that. You should do that. right? They're standing around, giving out essentially $10,000 coupons. You should grab one of those. I don't go, we don't go through, when we file our taxes and think, well, we'll take this deduction, we'll take that credit, but these three, like, we're just going to pass on those. Like, it's the rules. This is just the rules of the game. This is how it was set up. So I'm just going to move forward and do that, especially with something like this where it's like you don't even have to do anything.
Mm-hmm. But I would add to that as Catholics, like, if you do receive this, you are obligated to do something good with it.
Mm-hmm.
As we are called to be good stewards, and we're called to urge others to also do the good with it. To not just let this be I got 10,000, now I'm just going to go squander the opportunity or spend it on something that's not actually going to serve me, my vocation, or the kingdom. Or do things that are maybe bad for me because I don't owe now.
Mm-hmm.
We are called to be good stewards of it and to make sure that it moves the needle for us in a good direction.
Yeah, this could be a really big boost for you. And so take advantage of the boost, right? When you hit that star in Mario Kart, you got to keep steering. You got to make sure you stay on track and you get to the finish line. You take advantage of hitting that star, maybe bump up a couple places in the race. Mm-hmm. So you should take advantage of this. Keep steering. And maybe if you've been maybe a little bit asleep behind the wheel until now, well, shake your head around, take a sip of coffee, and let's do this thing. Let's learn how to handle our money well, move forward, and we can pay this off. Debt forgiveness or not, we can get out of this hole and we can move forward and really see some positive changes in our finances.
And how might you do that? Well, this week we actually have our WalletWin Academy open for enrollment, and we would love for you to join us there. Over at walletwin.com/join, you can check out the Catholic Money course, the different things that we have added into our community and our members' experience, and you can learn about a few different bonuses that we're offering right now, and you can get that plan for your money. You can learn how to become the good steward, and you can just get on with kind of those financial goals that you have. You don't have to wait for the government to bail you out. You don't have to wait for somebody else to fix your finances. Just do it now. I don't regret that we did it back in the day. Even if I'd found out 6 months later that, somebody could have paid it for me, I'm just glad we got started when we did. Mm-hmm. We got it out of the way, and we got moving on towards the things that God was calling us to and the things that we were dreaming about.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, getting out of debt, that's one puzzle piece. There are so many other parts of that picture, so even if all your debt's forgiven, there's still a lot more to do. There's a lot more to being a good steward of the things you've been given, and we cover a lot of that inside WalletWin Academy. So you can get started today. Head on over to walletwin.com/join, and we'll see you in there.
Until next time, bye for now.
Thanks for joining us today. You can learn more about this show and the WalletWin program at walletwin.com.
Music in this episode's from Dylan Gardner. Listen to his new album, Almost Real, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your music. See you next week.